The heavy metallic doors slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the grand throne room of the alien city. The air smelled of unfamiliar spices, and the floor was a smooth, glowing stone. Jack stood at the entrance, his boots clicking lightly against the floor as he stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back. He had been assigned to this mission as a peacekeeper, a simple soldier in a complex political situation. Yet, as he gazed up at the towering figure of Princess Solara, he couldn't help but feel a wave of nervousness rush through him. Solara was tall and regal, her skin shimmering a deep violet under the light. Her eyes were sharp and golden, looking at Jax with an intensity that could have burned through the thickest armor. She was a leader among her people, an alien species that was both ancient and proud, whose history was filled with war and conquest. To her, humans were nothing more than a curiosity, a race she'd learned to tolerate for political reasons. Jax's task was simple: negotiate a fragile alliance. But how could he, a soldier with no experience in diplomacy, bridge the gap between his species and the powerful people who had lived in space for centuries? He had no idea. Solara's gaze narrowed as he approached. The rest of the humans who had come to the planet before him had treated her with the same arrogance and dismissiveness, but not Jax. He had been briefed on the importance of this mission, but also on the importance of respect. Respect for an alien species, for their culture, and for their history. He was different. "Human," she said, her voice smooth and cold like a blade. "What is it that you want from me?" Jax raised an eyebrow, but remained calm. "Nothing. I don't want anything from you, Princess. I'm just here to talk." Her eyes flicked to his uniform, noticing the insignia of a soldier, a rank that suggested he was merely a tool in a larger machine. Yet there was something different about him, something that made her feel uncomfortable. "You must want something," she insisted, her voice rising slightly. "All of you are the same, always taking, always seeking to gain. You think we don't see it? You think I don't know what your people are really after?" Jack sighed. He had been expecting this, of course. It was only natural for someone as powerful as Solara to assume that all human interaction had an agenda, but he wasn't like that. "You're wrong," he said softly. "I'm not here to take anything from you, Princess. I'm here to understand." "Understand?" Her voice was a sharp laugh, filled with disbelief. "What is there to understand about a race like yours? You come here with your weapons, your machines, and your so-called diplomacy. You think we will just bend to your will, like the other races, before us?" Jack stood straighter, meeting her gaze with unflinching determination. "I don't think that. I don't expect anything from you at all. All I want is to make sure that our people don't destroy each other before we can find a way to coexist." For a long moment, Solara said nothing. She was used to humans fighting for control, for power, for advantage. Every interaction with her species had been marked by an attempt to manipulate or overpower. But Jax's words, so simple, so sincere, gave her pause. She looked at him closely. He wasn't like the others. There was no arrogance in his stance, no smirk of superiority on his face. His eyes, although human, were clear and calm, like someone who had nothing to hide. "What is this?" she finally demanded, her voice a mixture of curiosity and anger. "Why are you being kind to me? Is this some trick? Do you expect me to fall for your false kindness? Do you want something in return?" Jax was taken aback by her anger. He had anticipated skepticism, but not this intensity. He remained calm, his expression neutral as he chose his words carefully. "No, Princess," he said, his tone steady. "I don't expect anything. I'm just trying to treat you like a person. I'm here to listen, not to manipulate you." Solara's anger flared. She didn't trust him. She had never trusted any human, and she wasn't about to start now. "A person?" she sneered. "You think I am like you? That we are the same?" Jax didn't flinch. "No," he admitted. "We're not the same. But that doesn't mean we can't learn from each other. It doesn't mean we can't help each other." The princess stared at him, her eyes searching for any sign that he was lying. She had seen enough deception in her life to recognize it instantly, yet for some reason, she found herself doubting her initial judgment. Jax's sincerity was almost disarming. She hated it. "You are a fool," she finally said, her voice tinged with contempt. "If you think you can change anything with kindness alone, you are weak and you will fail." Jax didn't argue. He knew, better than to argue with someone like her, someone who had been raised in a world of power where kindness was seen as a weakness. "Maybe," he said with a slight smile. "But sometimes all it takes is one person to start the change. And that's why I'm here." The princess scowled. She didn't understand him and she didn't like it. But for some reason, she couldn't look away. Something about Jax made her question everything she had ever believed about humans. "Stay out of my way, human," she said sharply, turning her back to him. "I have no time for games." But Jax didn't leave. He stayed where he was, silently observing her, his mind turning over the things she had said. Maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something important. Jax stood still, watching the princess turn her back on him. Her dismissal was sharp, but it didn't faze him. He knew how this would go. The first step in any negotiation was establishing trust, and that was something Solara clearly didn't have for him. Yet. The grand throne room was quiet, except for the faint hum of alien technology and the distant echoes of her guards outside. Jax didn't move as Solara's back grew smaller. He'd made no progress today, but there was still time. He wasn't about to give up just because she was angry. As Jax turned to leave, the soft sound of footsteps behind him caught his attention. He turned, finding Solara walking toward him, her eyes fixed firmly ahead. She stopped just a few steps away, her posture straight, radiating authority. "You are still here?" Her voice was laced with disdain. "I thought I made myself clear. I don't want your kindness." Jax raised his eyebrows slightly but didn't answer immediately. He was used to hostile stares, but Solara's were different. Intense, like she was trying to pierce through him and see the truth hidden behind his calm demeanor. "I don't know what you expect, but it's not going to work." She took a breath and continued, her tone more controlled now, though still filled with frustration. "I've seen how humans treat us. You think I can't see your tactics? The way you offer something for nothing. What is it that you want from me, human?" Jax didn't flinch. He could feel her hostility rising, like the heat from a furnace. She didn't trust him. She didn't understand him. But that was all right. He didn't expect her to. Not yet. "I'm not here to manipulate you, princess," Jax said softly, meeting her gaze without backing down. "I'm here to help, to find a way for us to coexist." Solara's eyes narrowed, but she didn't speak. She was calculating, trying to find an opening, something she could latch onto and use to gain control of the situation. But Jax wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. He had no agenda, not for power, not for glory. His mission was simple: peace. "You think that by being kind to me you can soften my people?" she asked after a moment. Her voice had turned almost mocking. "You think we will suddenly agree to this ridiculous human request just because you offer me your respect?" Jax shook his head slowly, his face calm. "No, I don't think that. I don't think it's about respect, princess. It's about trust." "Trust?" She laughed bitterly, a sound that made Jax's stomach tighten. "Do you expect me to trust you after everything that has happened between our species? After centuries of war and conflict, you think a few kind words will change anything?" "Kind words are a start," Jax replied. "But they're only part of it. Trust comes with time. Actions. You don't build trust by demanding it. You build it by showing it." Solara's eyes flashed with irritation. "I don't need your lectures, human. I've seen enough of your kind to last a lifetime. Do you think I'm so weak that I'll fall for your false kindness? You offer nothing but empty words." Jax took a step closer, his voice steady. "I don't expect anything in return, princess. I'm not offering kindness to get something from you. I'm offering it because it's the right thing to do." For a long moment, Solara stared at him, her expression unreadable. There was something in her eyes now, something almost vulnerable hidden beneath the layers of anger and suspicion. Jax could see it, but he didn't call attention to it. He wasn't there to expose her weaknesses. He was there to help her find strength. "You must think I'm a fool," she said at last, her voice softer but still sharp. "You think I can be swayed by your human kindness? You think that will solve everything?" Jax shook his head. "No, Princess, I don't think it will solve everything. But it's a start. We can't move forward until we stop seeing each other as enemies." "Enemies?" Solara spat, her anger returning in full force. "You are a soldier. You are the enemy. How dare you stand here and lecture me on peace and understanding when your people have done nothing but wage war for centuries?" Jax's eyes didn't waver. "We're not perfect. I won't pretend that humans are always peaceful. But I'm not here to justify our past. I'm here to look forward to what we can do together. If you'd let me." The princess looked away for a moment, her gaze drifting to the grand windows that framed. The following days felt like a strange dance, one that neither Jax nor Solara truly understood. After their conversation, there had been silence between them. Jax continued with his duties, doing what he could to help with the peace process, while Solara spent her time behind closed doors deep in thought. It was unusual for someone like her, proud, powerful, and calculating, to be caught off guard by a human soldier's words. But Jax had managed to do just that. Despite her efforts to keep her distance, she could not stop herself from wondering about him. She was a leader of her people, and she had been raised to see humans as a threat, a species that had no place in the greater scheme of the galaxy. Yet Jax was different. His approach, his insistence on kindness, unsettled her in ways she could not fully explain. His quiet resolve made her question everything she thought she knew. It was the third meeting between them, and Solara had decided to confront him once again. She wasn't sure why, but she needed to understand. She needed to see if his kindness was real, or if he was hiding something beneath it. Jax stood at attention as she entered the room, her sharp eyes fixed on him, the tension in the air as thick as ever. There was no greeting this time, no polite small talk. The words came quickly, the frustration clear in her voice. "Enough with your kindness," Solara said, her tone icy. "I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm tired of pretending that this is anything but a manipulation." Jax stood still, meeting her gaze without flinching. His posture remained firm, calm. He wasn't angry. He had been expecting this. "I'm not playing any games, Princess. I told you before. This isn't about manipulation. It's just me being me." Solara's eyes narrowed, her golden irises flashing in the dim light. "Don't insult me, human," she hissed, her voice low and sharp. "You expect me to believe that a human would travel across the stars, risk everything and offer nothing in return? You expect me to believe you have no ulterior motive? Your species has been nothing but a plague across the galaxy, and yet you expect me to trust you?" Jax sighed, the words cutting through the air like a blade. "I'm not asking you to trust me, Princess," he said, his voice unwavering. "I'm asking you to consider the possibility that not all humans are the same, that there are some of us who believe in something better, a chance for peace. Not just for us, but for you and your people too." The anger that Solara had been holding in boiled over. She stepped forward, her voice rising, each word laced with fury. "You think I don't know what you're doing?" she demanded. "You think I can't see how you look at me? You think I'm some prize to be won? Do you think that by being kind to me you can break me? You think I'll lower my guard because of your empty gestures? You think kindness is enough?" Her words hit Jax like a wave, but he did not waver. "It's not enough, but it's a start. I'm not asking you to drop your guard, Princess. I'm just asking for a chance to prove that not everything between us has to be a battle." Solara's fists clenched at her sides, and for a moment, it seemed like she might strike him. She was powerful, far more so than any human he'd ever encountered, and her anger was a force of nature. But Jax stood there, steady and calm, never breaking eye contact. "You are infuriating," she spat, her voice trembling with rage. You act as if your kindness is some grand gesture, but it means nothing to me, nothing. You think I care for your pity or your misguided attempts at friendship? You think that by showing me kindness you can make everything better? Jax's expression softened. He understood now. This wasn't about him. This was about everything she had been taught, everything her people had endured. Her anger wasn't just at him. It was at everything she had come to believe about humans. And now he was asking her to consider that maybe some of that belief was wrong. I don't pity you, princess, he said gently. I respect you. And I think that's what you're struggling with. You're used to being in control, to commanding your people with strength. But strength doesn't always mean being the toughest, the most powerful. Sometimes it means having the courage to be vulnerable, to let others in. For a moment, Solara's anger faltered. She blinked, her breathing shallow as if she were processing his words, but then her gaze hardened again. Vulnerability, she sneered, taking a step back. You think I'm weak because I can't show vulnerability? You think I'll be just like you, a simple human who believes in peace and kindness at all costs? Jax shook his head slowly. No, princess, I don't think you're weak. I think you've been taught that showing vulnerability is weakness, that showing kindness means you have something to lose. But you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to hide behind anger and fear. I'm not your enemy. Solara's eyes narrowed once more, her chest rising and falling with each breath. She was torn, caught between her pride, her anger, and the strange new emotions Jax's words had stirred within her. She had never been forced to confront this side of herself, and it was uncomfortable. She didn't know how to react to someone who was genuinely kind without expecting anything in return. It made her feel exposed. You speak of things I do not understand, she muttered, her voice quieter now, almost to herself. You speak of peace, of kindness, but these are things I have never needed. Jax took a step forward, his tone softer now. Maybe you don't need them, but that doesn't mean they're not worth having. Peace isn't about winning or losing, it's about finding a way to live without destroying each other. And that's something we all need, not just humans, but everyone. The room was silent for a long moment. The princess's expression was unreadable, but Jax could see the conflict in her eyes, the turmoil beneath the surface. He had no idea how long it would take for her to come around, if she ever would. But for the first time, he could see the smallest crack in her armor. Maybe, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Maybe. One day we can talk more about this. Jax nodded, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I'd like that. Days passed, and though the tension between Jax and Solara didn't dissipate entirely, something had shifted. The moments when they crossed paths were no longer filled with open hostility, but a quiet kind of tension. Solara found herself paying attention to Jax in ways she hadn't before. His calmness irritated her but also intrigued her. His willingness to stay grounded despite everything, despite her anger, was something she couldn't ignore. She wasn't used to being questioned, especially not by someone as simple as a human soldier. To her, humans were impulsive, emotional, and often driven by selfish motives. Yet Jax didn't fit that mold. He wasn't like the others. He wasn't aggressive in his attempts to communicate or force her to trust him. And that, more than anything, confused her. The next meeting was scheduled without much fanfare. A simple conversation was all that was expected. Jax had no grand plans, no strategic moves. He simply wanted to continue what they had started, talking, understanding, trying to build something other than animosity. Solara entered the room, her usual regal composure in place, but Jax noticed the slightest flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. She quickly masked it with her usual sharp gaze, but it didn't go unnoticed. Jax didn't stand at attention this time. Instead, he leaned casually against the wall, a slight smile on his lips. "Princess," he greeted her, his voice light but not mocking. Solara's lips pressed together into a thin line. "I thought we had already discussed this." What more is there to say? Jax met her gaze calmly, not backing down. There's always more to say, Princess. There's always room to learn, even if it's uncomfortable. She crossed her arms, studying him for a long moment, as if trying to figure out his next move. For someone so skilled in diplomacy, Jax was oddly predictable, but that predictability made him all the more human. And for some reason, that only served to deepen Solara's frustration. You're persistent, I'll give you that, she said, finally breaking the silence. Her tone was less harsh than before, though the underlying anger was still there, simmering just beneath the surface. Why do you continue to insist on this? Kindness? Why are you still trying? Jax pushed himself off the wall, standing upright now, his expression thoughtful. Because I believe in it, he replied simply. I believe that kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change things. I believe that it's worth fighting for, even when it's hard. Solara scoffed, shaking her head. You're wasting your time. You think your words matter to me? You think kindness will solve the problems between our species? Do you think I've never seen the destruction your people have caused? The wars, the suffering. What do you expect me to say? That I'll just forgive everything because you're kind to me? Jax's face softened and he took a step closer, his voice steady. No, I'm not asking you to forgive anyone. I'm not even asking you to forget. I'm asking you to see that there's a possibility for something different. We don't have to keep fighting. We don't have to keep living like this. There's another way. Solara's chest tightened. She hated that his words stirred something inside her, something she didn't want to acknowledge. She had lived her entire life believing that the only way to protect her people was through power, through strength, through dominance. The thought of trying something else, something as simple as kindness, felt like a betrayal to everything she had been taught. Your idealism is frustrating. The days that followed were quieter, more deliberate. Solara and Jax had begun to navigate their interactions more carefully, their conversations no longer filled with the open hostility that had once defined them. Though neither of them would admit it, there was a subtle shift. For the first time, Solara didn't view every word Jax spoke with suspicion. She wasn't completely convinced by him, far from it, but she was no longer willing to completely shut him out either. The peace talks had officially begun, and tensions were still high between their people. Solara was well aware that the smallest mistake could ruin everything. She couldn't afford to appear weak, but she also couldn't afford to ignore the possibility that there was something to what Jax was suggesting. That thought lingered in her mind during every meeting, even as she continued to play her role as the fierce leader of her people. Jax had been in the background, quietly working to strengthen the alliance. But today, something felt different. There was an unease in the air, as though the peace she had been so determined to secure was on the brink of slipping away. And yet, when Solara crossed paths with Jax in the halls, he was as calm as ever, his gaze steady, unflinching. Princess, Jax greeted her, offering a small nod. Solara stopped in her tracks, a frown tugging at her lips. Jax, what are you doing here? She asked, her voice sharp, though not hostile. There was a shift in her tone now, a sign that she wasn't completely closed off to him. Not anymore. Jax smiled slightly, his eyes betraying no trace of nervousness. I came to speak with you, Princess. There's something we need to discuss. Solara eyed him warily, not entirely certain what this conversation would bring. The last time they had spoken, there had been progress, but she wasn't ready to give up her position of power yet. She wasn't sure she ever would be. About what? She asked, her voice still guarded. Jax stepped closer, his expression softening. About the talks, they're not going well, are they? Solara's eyes flashed with frustration. Of course they're not going well, she snapped. The other side doesn't want peace. They want to dominate us, to force us into submission. We're in a difficult position, human. There's no room for mistakes. Jax nodded, acknowledging her frustration. I understand, Princess, but you don't have to do this alone. I know you feel the weight of this responsibility. You've been carrying it for your entire life. But sometimes, it's okay to ask for help. Solara looked at him, her heart heavy with the weight of her people's future. You don't understand, she said quietly, her voice trembling for the first time. I have to protect my people. If I fail everything I've worked for, everything my ancestors have fought for, it will all be for nothing. I can't let that happen. Jax's gaze softened, and he took a small step toward her. You won't fail, princess, he said quietly. You don't have to carry this burden alone, that's why we're here. Why? I'm here to help even if you don't want to admit it. Solara swallowed hard, her chest tightening with the weight of his words. She had never allowed herself to be vulnerable, not to anyone, not even to herself. She had been trained from childhood to be the strong, unyielding leader. But in this moment, standing before Jax, she felt something stir deep within her. Fear, doubt, and something else, something she hadn't felt in years. You don't understand the kind of pressure I'm under, she whispered. My people are counting on me. If I make one mistake, if I show weakness, Jax gently interrupted her. You don't have to be perfect, princess. None of us are. You don't have to do this all on your own. I'm here to stand by you, to help you in whatever way I can. For a long moment, Solara didn't speak. She simply stared at Jax, her eyes searching his face for any sign of deceit. But all she saw was sincerity. The kindness that he had shown her from the beginning, even when she didn't want to believe it, was still there. It hadn't changed. Her heart raced, the truth of his words sinking in slowly. She had built so many walls around herself, so many defenses that she hadn't realized just how lonely it had all made her. She had always been the one in control, the one who made the tough decisions, the one who carried the burden. But now, standing before Jax, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in a long time. A glimmer of hope, a tiny seed of possibility that maybe, just maybe, things could be different. You're right, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't do this alone. Jax smiled, his expression warm but not smug. You don't have to. You have people who care, people who are willing to fight alongside you. For the first time, Solara didn't feel the urge to pull away. Instead, she took a deep breath and stepped closer to Jax, her eyes meeting his. I don't know what this means, she admitted. But maybe we can try. Try to find a way to make this work. For both of our people. Jax nodded, his eyes filled with quiet understanding. That's all I'm asking, princess. Just a chance. Solara swallowed hard, the weight of what she was saying settling on her shoulders. She wasn't sure if she was ready to let go of everything she had believed in, but there was a part of her that was willing to try. For the first time, she allowed herself to feel the smallest spark of hope. I will try, she said softly. I will try. Jax's smile deepened and he offered her a slight bow. Then we'll take this step together, princess. For a brief moment, Solara felt a flicker of something she had long since forgotten. Peace. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And maybe that was enough. The tension in the air was palpable as the days wore on. The peace talks were still ongoing, but something had changed. Solara found herself thinking about Jax more than she cared to admit. She had spent years believing that the only way to protect her people was through strength, through dominance, through control. But the more she interacted with Jax, the more she began to question that belief. He wasn't like the others. He didn't seek to dominate or manipulate her. His kindness, though frustrating, had been constant, and slowly it was breaking down the wall she had so carefully built around herself. For the first time in her life, she wasn't certain of everything. She wasn't certain of her people's past, their future, or even her own role in all of this. And that uncertainty was both terrifying and freeing. It was during one of the quieter moments of the peace talks that Jax found her alone, standing by the balcony, looking out over the city. The sunlight caught the edges of her violet skin, making her appear almost otherworldly. Jax hesitated for a moment, unsure if he should interrupt her solitude. But when she turned to face him, Her expression was not one of anger or suspicion, but something softer. "You've been distant lately," Jack said, his voice calm and neutral as he stepped closer to her. Solara's gaze softened, but she didn't immediately respond. She didn't know how to put into words everything that had been happening inside her mind. The weight of her responsibilities was heavy, and yet there was a part of her that felt lighter, almost like she could finally breathe for the first time in years. "I've been thinking," she said slowly, choosing her words carefully. "Thinking about everything, about what you've said, about the peace talks, about my people, about the way we've lived. I never questioned it before. I never thought I needed to." Jax nodded, waiting for her to continue. He knew this moment was important, but he didn't rush her. He understood that change took time, especially for someone like Solara. "Everything I've been taught, everything I've been told, it all pointed in one direction," she continued, her voice quiet but steady. "Strength, control, power. It's what I believed in. It's what I thought I had to believe in to keep my people safe. But now I see that there might be another way. A better way." Jax's heart skipped a beat, but he kept his expression neutral, giving her space to continue. "What are you saying, Princess?" Solara turned to face him fully now, her eyes searching his. "I'm saying that maybe there's more to life than just fighting. Maybe we don't have to keep repeating the mistakes of the past. Maybe there's a way to build something different. Something better." Jax took a step forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "I believe that's possible, Princess. I've always believed that." Solara took a deep breath, the weight of her thoughts pressing down on her chest. "I've been so angry for so long," she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "Angry at humans, at the galaxy, at the way everything has turned out. But now, I realize that anger has been keeping me from seeing the truth. You were right. We don't have to keep fighting. There's another way. And I want to find it." Jack smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Then we'll find it together." For a long moment, Solara stood there, the breeze gently lifting the strands of her hair as she processed everything that had just been said. She had spent her life as a leader, a protector of her people. But in this moment, she realized that true leadership wasn't about dominance, it wasn't about control. It was about understanding, about listening, and about being willing to change when change was necessary. Her mind raced with possibilities. What if there really was another way? What if peace wasn't just a dream, but something that could actually happen? She didn't know how or when or even where to begin, but for the first time she felt a sense of clarity. She felt as though she wasn't standing alone, but beside someone who believed in the same things she was beginning to believe in. "I've spent so her voice